introduce to me, I am Christian Angel from Mexico. I have a PhD in education technology, and I would want to introduce my presentation about the title of this presentation. It will be Reflection of the Need for a Moral and Ethical Reality Constitutes from the Three-Dimensional Immersive Digital Environments, 3D-IDEs. This presentation is based on my PhD research, where I observed the need to study ethics and morality in these three-dimensional immersive digital environments. That is why we, Dr. Landaverde, I set out to investigate how the ethical and moral situation is in relation to this immersive technology. The paper that we are writing is a reflection on 2 chapters of the book we developed. During the development of initial digital technologies, the users was an observed entity that, since it was not involved in the mixing of the real with the virtual, did not feel the direct and instantaneous affection of the use of said technology itself. Currently, with the new 3D-IDEs technologies, immersion is total, which generates a new problem both with their identity and with their perception of mixed realities, which can affect their moral perception and ethical awareness. Reflection Part 1. To begin this reflection, it is considered convenient to apply the programmatic linguistic method that distinguishes between the semantic, synthetic, and pragmatic dimensions of discourses. That is to begin by recreating the multifaceted reality that involves morality and ethics between the real and the virtual, from the macro concept that I write it with here with Paul Rudman, three-dimensional immersive digital environments, 3D-IDEs, which include the environments of virtual reality, augmented reality, virtual world, mixed reality, and extended reality. This macro concept will help us to integrate all these digital immersive environments in order to facilitate the understanding of the relationship with the moral dimension and ethical reflection, without having to fragment the analysis by discussing each element separately, since, according to Aristotle, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. Moral reality. The notion that will be handled around the moral reality comes from the proposal of Paul Ricoeur as considered the movement to decide on the intentional way to act in an intuitive way, which does not mean to ignore the ethical principles that, from the bioethics, are summarized in 3 aspects: human dignity, which leads us to respect the autonomy of each individual, the option for the dignity of our acts in terms of preventing them from harming third parties and, at the same time, being useful for the community of which we are a part. And finally, justice, which has different ramifications and in one of its aspects can be summarized with the expression equal treatment for equal situations. For example, in the case of apparently morally innocuous information which, according to Henschke, even puts vulnerable subjects at risk when such information is aggregated. If only such information remained unaggregated, it would be harmless, but once, if it's processed and added to new information, it results in a digital identity that uncovers sensitive information, which, uh, which, which can harm anyone if the information is used for perverse purposes. During the development of initial digital technologies, the user was an observer who, as he was not involved in the mixing of the real with the virtual, did not feel the direct and instantaneous effect of the use of such technology itself. Currently, with the new 3D-IDEs technologies, the immersion is total, which generates as a new problem both with their identity and with their perception and of the mixed realities, which can affect their moral perception and their ethical conscience. Since total immersion generates reactions that can get out of the user control, for example, getting to normalize violence. The humanization of surgeons who come to not different between the simulate and the real of an operation, ethical reality. As Pereira points out, it is convenient to move from the ethical rationality that consists in basing the subjective existence in a vital plan voluntarily. This is based on systems of reason that are the result of an introjection of the sense of a life itself in a concrete social context where one assumes their own responsibility in the achievement of beneficial life for the members of the community. However, since in reality there are problems derived from social pathologies, such problems can become a challenge to, in the light of personality, adopt values, develop of an ethical imagination that opens up alternative horizons where it is possible to reconfigure the life plan to achieve a desirable life through the creative and transforming effort of present undesirable situations. In the case of experiences through immersion in 3D-IDEs, it is convenient to alert the end users about multiple risks such as mentioned by Adams, all 3D-IDEs systems collect audio, video, and user touch inputs that could then be used with perverse intentions to exert coercion, harassment, and even criminal terrorism. Likewise, Adams reports the risk of manipulation and violation of immersive experiences, which are related to the corporal virtual issues that is connected to the physical and physics state of the end of users. Hence, the initiative of Adams in co-design a code of ethics with 3D-IDEs developers for developers, that is, to fill that ethical gap perceived by the same developers concerned about the possible harmful effects of 3D-IDEs management. Once the risks have been detected, which in this case are cited only to as examples, there are authors who accept that challenge to develop from the ethical imagination, monitoring systems to prevent and avoid moral damage to end users. Such is the case of Hench when he proposed the following tools to build an emerging ethic that accompanies immersive technologies in their development. The notion of the identity information day that make transparent the mutual relation of causality between personal information and the construction of the digital identity. The value-sensitive designs (VSD), in which all those involved in the development of 3D-IDEs before the design of the architecture of immersive environments, put ethical reflection first. It is proposed to use the 3D-IDEs macro concept that encompasses the immersive environments of virtual reality, augmented reality, and virtual worlds for an appreciation of perception and interaction, which these digital environments have in common being immersion, that central axis of the converge for the link in them. That is why, within the macro concept of 3D-IDEs, the conformation of these virtual environments is distinguished between space-time and body identity as means to exercise a systematic analysis of what we could recognize as the evil and the good of the interaction of the social networks. This discussion is described below through the configuration of the binomials. We began about that. Binomials will be space, time. Thinking the virtual space from the conception of Martinez Ojeda as a cyberspace, a space insulated from the emotional peculiarities of the traditional world and the distinctions of sacred place, where space is fictional because there is no implicit representation of what unread in the hypertextual. You can also identify the 3D-IDEs space where Sanchez-Martinez determines these archetypes of space as a copy of the world, which has the peculiarity of displaying an imperfect duplicate of a perfect original. Then, this situation could suggest that a virtual copy brings with it the evils of the real world to the virtual one, or worse still, to believe that in this virtual space, under the assumption that they are fictitious spaces, so they will not affect the negative behaviors in the real world. The author, Jeff Dunn, through his article of Virtual Worlds and Moral Evaluation, questions the asymmetry thesis, which state that virtual actions are never wrong because they are fictitious and therefore harmless. This author develops three types of arguments to refute the thesis of asymmetry. Virtual arguments from the author driver immoral actions that are dreamed regularly are not connected with the adverse effects, and similarly, reactions in virtuality cannot be immoral. However, Dunn points out that they are different experiences, and in the case of 3D-IDEs, virtual actions become systematically connected with a real consciousness, unlike dreams. Arguments in games, this about respecting the rules of the game, be it in real or virtual. Failure to do so affects human relationships. Arguments is staying in general, and adaptation has its reaches. However, it is to be taken into account that the intentions and not the consequence determine the moral status of the acts. Sometimes individuals take possession of such a degree of their role that they can affect affectation to the third parties. As for time, Martinez Ojeda refers that in the traditional reasoning, time is ordered with events that happen in specific instants, while immersive digital spaces time as merely sequential. The 3D-IDEs shows the singularity of the historic and timeless of virtual spaces based on the virtual characteristics. Then, this situation could result in the cybernetsters believing that death is kind of timeless, being able to feel goods and kill virtual without feeling remorses, because later they will revive their avatars. This will generate a conflict to the individual in his conception of reality for not understanding virtual time and its effects. In this line, there is a nickel where from pedagogical thinking, a structuring of the mind could be proposed to self-organize one's activities in immersion environments, inducing time activities. By suggesting the developers that beyond entertainment, challenges or plots be recommended that would drive deeper into the analysis systems of situation to reach results of beneficence and non-maleficence. Body and identity. Levy describes that in virtual terms, the body is no longer the virtual function of physical presence. Virtuality allows an almost infinite visualization of the body, while the non-form enables this visualization to be explored to alter the corporeal in what the fantasy desires. This transformation of the body in the virtual do not represent that the physical body ceases to coexist. It is rather a case of multiple appearances. In this situation, it would be necessary to emphasize that if the netizens come to believe the virtual body is infinite and can be inflicted damage or even death, this will generate in the mind of the individual that in reality it could do the same, this situation being something dangerous to be considered. In the construction of digital identity, you take the risk of lying to create a much improved body image of what you have. In this area, it is convenient to support end users to take the distance between wishes and facts. Between valuations depend on the outside and the self-assessment that can integrally rescue qualities. John Levy points out that every human being has great wealth of capital that contribute to the community growth. Since personal capital does not refer exclusively to the economy aspect, we all have physical natural capital, the same life, epistemic capital, tacit and explicit knowledge, and ethical capital, discover the meaning of the one's life. Social capital, real and virtual relationships, and cultural capital, the human cultural works contributed by humanity for the new generations, and political capital, mutual influence, aimed at the common good. All these capitals are in development and transit between the possible and the feasible, depending on the conviction that an effort can always be made to realize what is imagined as possible. Final thoughts. The ethical way of being and existing is a constitutive part of every human being who learns to survive as time progresses and recycle all kinds of vital experiences. One would like to eliminate experiences that have been at the level of goodness and justice, saying that magic worlds blur a new account. However, even those negative experiences, it is necessary to face them, question them, and assume them to overcome them. When one is attached by an illness, the worst thing one can do is deny that one is ill. It is best to seek an ethical doctor along with the best treatment and medication to get out of the mess. Just as a cognitive development requires educational support to reach high levels, so the development of ethical sense requires multiple education supports to achieve a high level of effective freedom, which is manifest in a timely manner through acts of an existential understanding, full or subjective awareness in a case of reciprocity, assuming co-responsibility in the achievement of the common good, either in the real life, as it is in virtual reality or augmented reality. The human being is both himself and ipseity. As Ricord points out, the self remains as the soul, and the ipseity changes as the matter of our body does. Thank you for your attention. This is my contact with my Facebook, Christian Jonathan Angel, my Twitter, ecoonis, and I will pass the information sources that I will using for this presentation. Here is Adam. It is my paper that you can download here in the box, right here in the box. You click it and you can read my paper that I write with Paul Rudman, that is here with me, PD Alchemy. With him I write with Dr. Juan Carlos. The three of us, we write our paper. Thank you, Ben.